Hello everyone, my name is Karond and welcome back to the Buddyhood League Brawl Season 2. And today I'm not going to have an episode as such. Instead, I've gathered some eminent players of both of the divisions and we're going to talk a little bit about the Buddyhood League, giving everyone here a few tips on how to play the warbands, how to catch up, who they are impressed by, their toughest games, and just regularly interviews. And with me today, I will be having Karond, who finished first in Division 1. I'm going to have Poker with me, who is probably finishing second or third in Division 1. And we would have had True Seeing, but he cancelled on us in the last minute. And we got this runner-up, the third finisher of Division 2, as well as me, Karond, the first finisher of Division 2. So you have a lot of potential. We have been doing pretty well for ourselves. 3 of us come from the level 10 tournament crowd with lots of Mordheim experience. And we are hoping that we can give you a little bit of some tips. Let's start off with some introductions so you recognize the voices here. Karond? Could you say
hello, this is Kitten Paw. And for the record, I actually like dogs.
Yeah, wow. This is not a dating website. Thank you very much. Poker, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Poker, and I like cats.
I can see the theme here. And the third player we have with us here is Ray Oren.
Hello, and I don't like animals.
Good point of view. Thank you. That was a nice opening. So, we're here to talk a little bit about the league, and I think that we should start with each of the players. We'll get to explain a little bit in a short form what they have been planning for their warbands and what their strategic thinking is going into this league in this particular format. And we're going to start off with Karond here, who plays the Witch Hunters.
Yes, so Karond got the Undead. I got the Witch Hunters. I think we've been talking throughout this thing. They're obviously... We decided probably 2 of the strongest starting warbands because, well, I get the captain. So not known as one of the better leaders, but he's also not terrible. So he's pretty much a ranged build, given that your other 2 options right out the gate are 2 Templars. So they're obviously very heavy melee units. I've talked to him too. It kind of seems weird that they didn't have the regular Witch Hunters there because they seem a lot like young bloods and whatnot. 2 Templars right there, which are heavy armor, melee resist, high weapon skill units. So,
and I don't think any one of the Witch Hunter players actually needs to get that tip. Every one of you have gone with 2 Templar Knights, but
I get the point I'm trying to make is that the captain could have been a dodge build. I don't think anyone has made a melee one, but you see that passive, so he could have been like a dodge melee, but I think taking the ranged is the way to go with him. So
indeed, it complements your warband much better. You need a little bit of a mix of range and melee.
Out of combat, which can be a negative for other units like the vampire. So it's much less prone to death and injury. So. And then from there, the next step is what do you do with the henchmen? And I think they're with your units, the undead, they did a good job balancing as far as probably the worst henchmen in the game. So you only get light armor maximum, so they're not the best tanks. They can use a shield. They have their vengeance passive. Make pretty good ranged units, and you need, I think, ranged henchmen, at least 1 or 2. And I think we'll touch on it later, warband composition. But the zealots, I think I currently have 2 ranged ones. Shield one who keeps Poker killed him once. Rorator took out his eye. I think he's like my 3rd one, honestly, and I'm just using the one with a bad eye because his job is to just block units, honestly. And then I started with 3 flagellants, actually. I still have my 3 original flagellants. And they're really dodge units with psych immunity. The best they get is cloth. You have a conundrum about do you go single-handed. I think most players know at this point you got a level 0 unit. You want to use dual wield or 2-handers. Pill. use a single-handed, but then you get to the 5th red pill. Do you want to use a single hand for dodge and do 3 attacks, maybe with adrenaline rush? Two-hander. So I'm currently probably going to use 2-handers, dodge and psych immunity. But they're very prone to range damage, and they can't wear a helmet, so you can stun them. There's a lot of problems with that unit. So.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's see if Rioren, who finished 3rd in Division 2, has anything to add. He's also playing as the Witch Hunters.
Not really. I'm kind of the dark horse because I am very new to this game, so I got lucky to get this far. So to be honest, I have asked more of some of the experienced players about what kind of things worked and looked it up on the internet. So I've built a pretty standard warband with a Witch Hunter and 2 Templars and Wolf Priest, a Warrior Priest, and then just Henchmen. So
yeah, I think that's the next point. Yeah, what heroes do you take next? So it sounds like you also skipped the Witch Hunter, which he was your first unlock, and I honestly didn't buy one. I don't know about you. I just kind of pretend it didn't happen. I got the other Templar. And then I think once you get your next hero slot anyway, is exactly when you get the Warrior Priest. So I dropped my Warrior Priest. You can either take a Smuggler or a Wolf Priest, and since you already have that leader and ranged options, I think the Wolf Priest definitely works very well with Witch Hunters, given what you're building with armor and melee resistance. So I'm currently leveling them, and then there's also probably one of the worst impressives in the game you could unlock as well. I don't know if you did that, Rioren?
Oh no, I haven't played him at all. I haven't played this warband at all before this tournament, so I was a bit afraid about experimenting with a guy I've been told is the worst. So I've been a bit trying to play it safe.
So Executioner, he starts with 15 accuracy, which is literally a mastered level. So he's gotten me some good crits. Mine, I haven't been PvEing with him against the AI. I saved that for my priest. So, but he does fill a nice role in the PvPs as a critter. But he's got really kind of bad weapon skill. You know, he's kind of like you need him to land the hit, and then if he does, you might get a crit. So you invest in. So I think he just fills a niche or a hole while you level up the other guys. So
yeah,
but Witch Hunter, I'm side leveling. Actual Witch Hunter ranged guy, I'm side leveling. I think we've talked about this too. It's really important with gunpowder, red pill, which applies to mercenaries. Once you get that 6th red pill, there's not much difference between the 6th red pill until you get to level 9, 10, and you get your 9th red pill.
It will be
Otherwise,
10th level.
Yes, yes, you're literally stuck on 2 shots from level. When do you get that? I think you get around level 3, your 6th red pill. So from level 3 to 10, you're doing basically the same damage. Powerful, I think, to get a 6 red pill ranged, like Witch Hunter or Smuggler or whatever you want to put in there, as a good complementary ranged unit. So,
as we were starting to speak a little bit of gunpowder, let's move on to the last player here in the chat, Hole Poker, who is actually playing as the mercenaries, and who has that exact conundrum with his heavy range emphasis.
Yeah. So I'm playing the mercenaries, and they have some great ranged units. So I've taken the liberty of, getting quite a lot of ranged into my team. Currently, I am rocking 2 Youngbloods, who both are ranged, and 2 Marksmen, who also are ranged. So I have almost half of my warband stocked up as ranged characters, and they're doing quite good. They've done good so far, but it's quite precarious to play versus other players, because they are very, very prone to getting locked down, and as quickly as anyone gets into melee, they're basically just down for the counting. So you have to be quite careful.
Do you have any tips for how to play with double Youngbloods as ranged? Just 2 ranged heroes like that?
Yeah, so my general strategy has basically been to always take up positions where I can just choke. You know, choke points everywhere, like houses or like just tight quarters in general are great. And I always, I always kind of try to keep a positioning so that, you know, my opponent will always find my warriors first. Maybe they get some shots off, and maybe they'll even engage. And then after a turn or two, you know, my ranged forces will just like come around a corner and start unloading. So I always try to like lock down some units first, and then I'll engage my range. Unless it's becoming like more of a poke game, you know, where you come out of the corner, you get a few shots off, and then you retreat. That can also happen sometimes.
So it's kind of a shame True Scene's not here, not to interrupt a bit, but he did something really cool, and you even mentioned that in your video, where he took a marksman and gave him Lad's Got Talent. I thought that was a really good way to get red pills, and they make such good heroes, one of the few henchmen.
Yeah.
It should be noted that if you do take Lad's Got Talent, you get your red pills much faster as well.
So it's a very good strategy, and I thought about it for a very long time, but given that I have so much ranged already, I felt like getting another ranged hero just wasn't worth it for me. Because he did another thing, like he had a completely different idea what to do with Youngbloods, right? So Youngbloods is the first unit you unlock with the mercenaries as a hero, and they aren't really that good. They aren't the best in range, they aren't the best for melee, they're kind of like somewhere in between. So I was like looking through builds of melee units and ranged units, and I just felt like the range was superior. And so I opted for 2, and, you know, as I said before, getting another one just seemed, you know, just, I don't know, irrelevant almost. Well, I guess I should add another thing, that I don't only have ranged. I started off with a very strong captain. It's my leader. And he's a very strong unit to start off with, because he has this passive, which is called, I think, Swift Reaction, which gives him like an increased parry chance. But also, each parry attempt he does, he gets an extra reduction of offense points of his counterattacks. So, you know, when you combine that with parry, which also gives a reduction to counterattacks, you can basically counterattack for free. So he just goes into a unit and just, like, you know, attacks into him, and then when he's spent all of his offense points, and it's the other player's turn, and he starts attacking him, he can just counterattack for free, and that's really, I just feel it's such an annoying unit to go up against, especially when I've placed him, you know, like somewhere in like a doorway or something, when you have to attack into him to get into my ranged arsenal.
All right, I was going to ask you another thing here, which is that you have a lot of heavy armor on your team. And that's very, very much true of Kinumpa and Riorin as well, so we can extend the question to them too. But do you feel that the more ranged you have, the more heavy armor you can afford, because you aren't as reliant on movement as some other warbands would be? Would that be true for you guys?
When it comes, if I can take the word again, when it comes to like winning matches, sure. But when it comes to like looting and so on, I feel severely hampered by going heavy armor.
What about you, Kinumpa?
Yeah, I like a ratio almost. I try to stick to 2 to 1. You know, is about the most. So if you're talking about a level 10 band, so what's ranged? You know, it's not literally just an archer. Like, so for hole poker, you know, or a purifier. I mean, may as well call it ranged, because you don't want that getting into combat. So
no,
just have a serious. None of us are sisters. I think they all know their issues, but you know, they can't even get enough range. The most they could literally, well, if you count the matriarch, maybe fires and a smuggler. The most with the matriarch is they're going to have 4, and I think that's ideal. 4. Because you need to cover them.
Yeah.
So if you have enough melee, so what can happen is if you lose early melee, you lose one of your henchmen early, you're just going to get swarmed, knocked down, and there go the range units.
You'll get absolutely wrecked. I noticed this because I lost actually lost my most high-leveled henchman just like in I think it was my last or my maybe second last game. He was like level 7 or 8, and I lost him to Doc. He crushed him, and he just like died right off the bat. And it was like going into games after that, like I just feel like I'm such a weaker warband. Like I can't hold positions as well. I'll get sworn much easier. Like I just feel like I have just less flexibility somehow.
Yeah. So I think you can see an example on Karond's channel. We get me against Rorator. We got the random deployment, the scared deployment. So we're all over. And my biggest fear, right off the bat, is he could reach my level 8 ranged unit that had a lot invested in him, and I really needed that guy to live, and he did barely. They're very important. So that's the stress of having them. Is they're powerful, but you also really have to protect them. So.
Yeah.
What do you feel about this Riorin? You said that you had a few more ranged henchmen than, for example, Kirampa has. How do you feel this counts up?
Oh, well, I mean, the problem is that if they're scattered, for example, that's what the others also are saying, that they can be singled out very easily, and I'm also extremely afraid of that, which is why I was considering giving them as their main hand, like a dagger or something, so they have an extremely high initiative. So when they start the round, they will go first, so they can run away and regroup with some of the more hardier guys. And then they can switch to ranged weapons.
Yeah, so if you have like scattered deployment, you're safe, basically.
I mean, yeah, ish. Depends how far they have to run and how close the enemy is.
Safer, at least.
Yeah, and since switch weapons cost 2 blue pills, you're gonna lose out on 2 blue pills right away, and then you only have 4 left.
Yeah, but I would rather have them wait around with attacking instead of them being caught up in melee. And then
so we also have hosting here. Probably I was talking about sisters, but undead are really, really ranged poor. They have no ranged henchmen, and you have necromancers, but trying to become strong ranged per se. So you've been rocking the 2 dregs. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I've been leveraging on the 2 dregs because I felt the exact same way. I do want sort of a 2-1 ratio as well, with 2 being the melee. And since I've already devoted myself to only playing with the ghouls, I have 5 ghouls to start with, the vampire who's really strong. And then I figured that I need a lot of ranged, and then the only thing I can get it from reliably and with some efficiency is the dregs. So I've been using dregs and leveraging their power. I've had a blue bow from the beginning, and then I got some purple ones, and I've really been forcing my opponent to come to me so far with a lot of the matches that I've played, or make them run away from me, if that's the case. So I really like that. I could go for the Necromancers, but I know that Rarator is going for a Necromancer, and by the way, Rant might be, Doc might be, I don't know their warbands too well. But I won't be doing that because I feel that the curse reduction runes, I might not even get them, and that's a whole big problem for me. Speaking of that, by the way, let's move on and talk a little bit about, because we are about to finish off with the first part of this league. We're gonna play 11 games each, and then we're gonna switch. I'm gonna have an division. Okay.
Can I interrupt one more thing then? Because we're all holy. You're or whatever you want to say, good order and
distraction warband, yeah.
Touched on one unit I think we're about to be bombarded by, which is the poison wind globadier. I know it's really tempting for you since you're undead. What do you think is going to happen with these? First of all, I would say take a shuriken, guys, over the pistols. But what can we say about these poison wind rats before we move on?
All right. I have promised myself, because I feel that I have so much experience here, that I promise not to take a globadier. The rule for the globadiers here in this league, in case other people are looking into this video, is that you can only bring 1 DLC unit at a time in your warband, and that means that most people from the destruction side are probably going to go with a globadier. I went with a Doomweaver because I think no one else will take him, and I want to showcase him. But yes, we're gonna see a lot of globadiers from every other player, and they are gonna litter the field with poison gas, which is extremely strong. It's just about seeing if they have experience enough to estimate where they want the poison gas. Many people, they throw them up in front of them, trying to use them as cover, etc. But I find, from my experience on casting a lot of games, is that players tend to injure themselves more with their initial poison globes than the actual enemy, because eventually they find out that they have to run through all of those poison gases, or they put them in positions where they actually need to go. So it's all about experience and seeing if they can temper that a little bit. And yes, I second the shurikens. What do you guys think?
I mean, I appreciate your ability to avoid temptation, especially with only 2 dregs, no other ranged, and immunity to poison. So Rorator, you can see in this video, yeah, he like littered the field. He became his MVP that match. I think he was only like level 2. So yeah, they can do a lot of damage if you catch a group and start stacking that poison. It's just not. So here's the thing about Mordheim. The Poison Wind Globadier does a lot of damage per se, but you want to kill units. Point can still do everything. So I think that's kind of the downfall a little bit with Poison Globes. You want to kill units. It's nice to bring everybody down, but you need to focus units. I would just add that at the end. So.
Whole poker?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, focus fire is very important, and the Globadier kind of lacks that, at least at the early stages, because like later you can still focus fire with just with your ranged alternative.
But specifically for you, since you have this heavy range compartment compared to the other 2 players here, and you go behind walls and take cover and have some units tie up units, you're gonna be bombarded by poison clouds more than anyone else. How would you handle that?
I'm well aware. Well, there's gonna be some issues. Like I know I'm gonna have to take a lot of damage and a lot of pain to get through all of those poison clouds, and I don't think I really have too many means to get around it, because my warband is a slow moving ranged force. I won't be able to get that exhaustion going, 8 movement, and get around and get to that Globadier's position and kill him. I just don't have the potential for it. So what I'm planning at the moment, I guess I'll just have to be in a position where I feel like I can be safe, and I'll have to get him come to me. I can't just like I can't move to the opponent that is just like gassing the areas all around me.
I don't know about you guys, but I've been stockpiling potions too. They're really tempting to sell for gold, but I've definitely got a horde of antidotes and antitoxins.
They're also very, very common, right? That's what I find in my scavenge points. It's like always antitoxin.
I don't think they sell that well either. So I've been kind of hoarding some, looking at my opponent list and being like, oh, time to stock them up and bring them out into combat, So I think that's a route people.
Let's move on to Rayoran, and let's see if we can just focus on the subject a little bit so we can go through more topics. Rayoran, what do you feel about the Poison Globadiers?
Well, I mean, I have and Kitten Paw as well have a very, very good advantage in our Warrior Priest. His starting spell removes all poison effects.
Indeed.
So I can actually just use him to remove poison effects, and it only costs 2 red pills. So if I make sure his Divine Wrath is very low, he can do it to 2 to 3 times if I need it.
And it also provides poison resistance for further
damage.
It does.
Yeah, I would definitely think about those antidotes too in that skill, because poor game night, people don't think about the warp poisons too, so it'll also negate that. So it's worth looking at.
It's very good for you guys. You're gonna have a blast playing against Destruction. I, on the other hand, will have issues. But I've played against the Poison Wing Globadiers already, and I haven't felt a threat from it yet. But I guess I haven't played with someone who's really used him to the pinnacle of how can I say this? No one has really used him that well against me just yet. They've thrown maybe 1 globe, and then I've been able to engage and just lock him down. I feel like a lot of people, they go forward, maybe they use 5 or 4 red SP, going forward, throwing away their globe, and then they retreat, but they don't retreat far enough. And so far, I've actually had a really easy time just dealing with them. I haven't had a bad time.
That's a good point, since they only have 15 range. You have to take
Yeah.
that into account.
Yeah, they're very short range, so they are quite dangerous to use. Like they'll have to gain like exhaustion and so on before they really can become a really good harass unit, I feel.
If you beg me, all of you, I will get a poison wind globadier and show you.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
I can live without it.
So let's go through. So what I was actually saying earlier here, before we started talking about the poison wind globadier, is that we have played almost 11 games each, and then we're gonna have a separation where half of the players are gonna go into an upper division, and half of the players are going to go down to a lower division. And the players in the upper division, they already through to the playoffs. The lower division, they are going to fight it out for the 4 last playoff spots. But with the switch here that we're going to experience, every single player will have a chance to switch out their veteran points. And could we please give everyone some tips on what to actually pick for the veteran points? Because the players we have been talking to, there have been some abysmal choices. So let's see if we can optimize that here. Kiranpa.
Yeah, again, you and I talked a bit at the start. I think, what did we get, 4?
5.
I can't remember.
5, yeah.
Me, I think, okay, what's the... I always knew gold was going to be an issue. Gold. So right off the bat, what's the most expensive damn thing in this? It's training skills. So I think that's a no-brainer, the trainer one, because that can save a lot of gold.
It's 5% and 10% if you take it twice over.
Talking, what, 300 for the... Well, it's even more for the mastery. It's 300 for, like, the level 9 ones, right? And then when they're mastery, what are they, 600? So it saves you 60 gold at that point? Am I getting that right?
Mm.
A lot of gold savings. So that was a no-brainer. I knew I'd be training units. So I think you took Mastery Librarian. I took Basic. I didn't think I'd get that many purples, and I remember seeing the rule set that we could, at the change of the divisions, respec. Warband's level 6, I was thinking more, okay, now we can get Mastery Librarian, because I'm probably going to start dropping more purples. So what I did spend 2 points on was scouting. I also knew wordstone deliveries were going to become really annoying, because you guys, we're all used to playing level 10 warbands. You get, 20 days in between? So you're not used to that, pressure. Plus, you could play as many PvEs as you want. Now, I figured I was optimistic and hoped I'd be winning. And so I have less matches in between to refill to refill my reserves of stone. So I wanted to find good, brutal, deadly wordstone loot or exceptional loot maps. So I thought it was well worth the 2 points in scouting. So that's where mine went.
I'm gonna interject here and say that my particular choices, Karond, is very similar. I picked Librarian twice, and the difference between me and Kiranpa is that he had Librarian only once, and that means he can only get blue formulas, while I could get purple formulas at random. And I've gotten quite a few so far. I think I have 12 or 13 purple formulas, and almost all of them come from Librarian. And that's just the power of it. You really need to get Librarian twice over, I feel. I also second the training one, getting that 10% discount. You do get discounts as you level up the Wordstone factions, and that stacks with this discount. And just like Kiranpa, I got at least 1 in scouts, but I think that's entirely optional and people can pick what they want. But that's how I would optimize it. What about you, Holpoker?
Well, I've opted for the exact same as you have. Double on Librarian, double on, I think it's called Scholar, the training one, and then it's the scanning one as well, just the single.
What about you, Riorin, then?
Well, I also got Scholar, but I was more afraid that I wouldn't get the Wordstone, so I got Wordstone. And then I got a random contract I chose.
Alright.
As I have no experience with this at higher level, this is actually the first time I've got a warband past rank 5, so if I knew about the enchantments and how important they were in late game, I would definitely have gone for Librarian.
But what are you going to switch to now with the switch?
Librarian, 2 in that, and 2 in Scholar, and then 1 in Scout, I think.
All right, it's exactly the same. Yeah, the thing with Librarian is that you get the full power, the purple enchantments, really early, but if you pick a contract, it will be tied down to warband level, so most of the time you actually only get a white equipment if you do get something. And it's only when you start leveling up to warband level 5 or 6 that you start getting maybe a blue one. So it's not, the contracts are not that great to have.
Yeah, so that's back to my logic. I was like, all right, great, I got this purple contract, but I was thinking like the first division, I'm like, am I really going to get that many purple weapons to actually leverage? Because I don't believe you can put a purple. I'm certain you can't put a purple enchant on a blue or a white. So for me, I was like, I might get all these things, but I'm not going to have much to use it on. But yeah, once you start rolling in, and that's why I'm going to switch at this point to the 2 for Librarian. It's because now I have purple stuff that's not enchanted, but granted it's very expensive, that maybe I could start putting stuff on. So
yeah, I see it as a long-term investment. Like, you won't be able to use the purple enchantments that you get if you do put double into Librarian, but like longer, like forward in the time, like you will have the purple equipment, and then it will be just be nice to like increase the chances of actually getting something decent. Because like if you start late, you're not gonna have the same amount of purples, and then you might not get what you want, right?
All right, a bit of honesty here, everyone. You'll tell me which single one is your best enchantment right now that you have available to you. Okay, you can start.
Yeah, I got a +4 to ballistic skill on an armor.
And why is that good for you?
Well, I'm a ranged heavy warband, and especially like for my young blood. So my marksmen to start off with, they have a really high base ballistic skill. They can get up to 18 at max, so it's not that good for them. But for my young bloods, who can only get a max of 15, it's amazing. Right. Like getting that extra like 8% hit chance is just, I don't know, it's so good.
And 12% damage to boot.
That too, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, you'd ask for the single one, so I won't mention my others. But at this point now, it's probably luck. Enchant that gives you, on a one-hander 5% and on a two-hander 10%. So basically, unlike the undead, we've talked about, you get the cheap crit resistance, which is very important in PvP. It's funny to see. We're not really talking about that right now, but toughness and crit resist has been low in a lot of players, and it can ruin a match. Especially if you go out of action, because then you have higher injury roll chance. So up there, because now I can drop it on my two-handers, and it's basically a free resilient skill. Because resilient for me, 70 gold. And it gives the same benefit. So instead, I can drop this on a blue weapon and get the same benefit as resilient, been pumping toughness, be sitting around a really good, healthy place of 25, depending on the unit, % crit resistance. Given the competition, that's more than enough. So
that's a very good point. The skill he's referring to is called body reconstruction. It costs 1 day of training, and for me, with this the skill scholar, as Holpoke mentioned, it only costs 90 gold. But for people who are not the undead, you will have to resort to resilience. It costs 270 gold with scholar and takes 3 days to train. So it's a big difference. And when it comes to critical hit chance, every single character starts with 5%. +1 per accuracy, and most people focus entirely on weapon skill and not too much on accuracy. So as long as you can get your critical hit resistance up to somewhere around 12-15ish, you should usually be fine, and that's what Kinopa is hinting at, since he doesn't have the purple enchantment, he has the blue enchantment of luck, owing to his single librarian. And that could be well enough. Let's see what Rioran has gotten so far.
Well, I only have blue enchantment, so it's not going to be that amazing. But it's a +2 to ballistic skill on my armor.
Alright, well that's decent enough. It's nice to have.
You can also use it much more early than I can. Like I haven't gotten any purple armor. I barely gotten any blue, so I won't be using my ballistic skill enchantment for a while.
Well, that's back to why I thought Mastery would be hard to get, yeah. But in long term, it's better for you, yeah.
Yeah.
It's also cheaper to enchant the blue ones than the purple ones. Twice the cost. And personally for me, my absolutely best purple enchantment so far has been +4 weapon skill. Since I have a heavy melee warband, that's just perfect for me. I can max out the weapon skill for every single character that I have.
Man, that's so nice. Just a tiny bit jealous there.
Let's unless someone has a specific question, let's move on. We talked a little bit about your respective warbands, but we have missed the warbands that we have not discussed and the players that do play them. See if we can give a little bit of some tips on how you would play these warbands or what you would do in their positions. Is everyone all right with that?
Yeah, sure.
You know, I've played a lot of Chaos. I can't speak to what Poker or Riorin did as a single player, so...
Yeah, let's...
I don't have a lot of experience.
Let's start with the Cult of the Possessed. Just everyone can say something. The current players who play the Cult of the Possessed are Crimdrak, Lum, and Morjax, who will all be going to the lower division, as well as Carol, who will be going to the upper division. What are the greatest challenges and advantages to playing with the Cult of the Possessed? They are the ones that have, if you look at this particular table here, they have been doing the absolute worst so far.
No, we've spoke again, and I think your most hours are with Possessed, and mine as well. Vast majority of my playtime in this game was leveling up my Chaos Warband. Are tough early. They really are. And that's the problem here. Magister's basically just dead weight for a long time. And he's your leader. Because, you know, okay, let's put the Magister into melee combat. Get him in there. You know, he's going to die quickly. He doesn't have a lot of survivability or weapon skill. You know, if you're training weapon skill, you know, like, what are you doing? He has very limited offensive spells. You know, it's just kind of tough for him because he's a support. And then you have mutants, and you have 0 control, in theory, on mutations. So you could be, let's say, you know, mutants are up there or down there with young bloods as far as builds. They can be really kind of bad, especially, say, as ranged. Well, he just mutated his arm. There goes my ranged guy. I only have limited time and resources, and I've just lost him.
Yeah, they're very unpredictable that way, getting the mutations.
So yeah, it's really tough early, and this is a tournament that kind of weighed early matches kind of heavier, you know, because you want to get off to a good start. Now, I would say, I argue a lot that the henchmen are very strong. I'd say they're number 2. No one's going to touch the mercs. Even as far as henchman power, I believe, because they have a really good ranged build. The Brethren, which even their passive is a ranged skill, so the game's telling you, hey, this is a good ranged unit.
Let's expand this question and say, out of the you have played a few of these Chaos players. Have you seen anything that you like about what you're doing right now?
Tough. Let's see. I had Lum and Crimdrak, and I just could tell they were crippled. You know. They're facing me. I hadn't had much loss, and I played them later in the league. I think like week 8, 9, stuff like that. And it was tough, man. They didn't have a lot of options. And what you would want to do is make your Dark Souls expendable, and that's how you have to play the AI. They hit like trucks. They're very, very, very good melee units, obviously. And it's funny. I've been talking a lot with Lum in private chat, and I think he did it perfectly. He took Dark Soul. He could use 2-handers earlier than any other unit, and he's immune to psychology. And he starts with 6 strength, so he can get into heavy armor immediately as well. So these are all really nice things. He's 2-handeds early. Well, once you get 4 red pills with him, you do a 2-pill back, and then you use Attracting Lure. Cost 2 red pills, and in theory, hopefully, your opponent with low leadership, because this is still early, fails his test. It's probably about the same. It's probably about a 20% chance, which would be like an 80% hit chance. You know, both have 20% chance of failing. And then if they do, they run off and you get a free attack on them. So, and Lum was actually doing that. So that's a really nice way probably the first skills I would take on a Dark Soul.
Good props going out to Lam there. Poker, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I really like attracting lure in Chaos. It's one of my favorite skills, even like across all warbands, because it not only can you like chain it with two-handed attacks, you can also use it to break stances, and I just feel like that is so powerful. And to boot, they can also be used to like you have this, maybe the opponent has a henchman just sitting on a certain choke point somewhere which you really want to break through. Just use attracting lure, he'll run off, and you can just break through, and I just feel that's so powerful.
Can see where there's just such an end game warband, because you got to get it there, and it's just so hard early, and I feel bad for the players with it. You know, obviously the other really strong thing is parry bypass. That's great and all if you get the blue and purple armbands, but those are notoriously, for whatever reason, hard to find. So.
How do you feel about having faced Mordheim and Karond, Riaren, the other two Cult of the Possessed players in Division 2?
Well, I mean, Karond wasn't that... It was an interesting game, but I was lucky and got his leader. It was kind of messy. Mordheim was a bit more interesting because we were facing each other and he had a Dobadir and it was kind of a bitch. But I got lucky. Yeah. But I got lucky and blocked him in with my 2 Templars, and they could, well, they didn't go down because they're Templars.
Did you feel that there was something that was particularly dangerous with these two warbands that you would wish that other Cult of the Possessed players could follow it?
I mean, attracting lure, that's kind of the bread and butter of that warband. I feel like it was the one that annoys me the most, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you can do some insane like initial damage. So say you go in with multiple units on one, and then you use attracting lure, and you succeed. In that case, both of your guys who are engaged with your one opponent will get free attacks, right? So you can like you can like get multiple attacks in with just like 2 red pills, and that's really insane.
It should be worth mentioning here that when you do get a free attack, you get a bonus chance to hit, and the chance to fail on attracting lure is actually pretty high because you only use the opponent's leadership times 3, and that's their percentage chance to succeed. They don't get any other bonus.
Yeah.
So I think something to touch on with them, since we're kind of mid game now, is I was recommending I think you gotta grab the Impressive. This is one of those warbands along with Sisters. The Mutant, we've talked about the problems. Then you get the kind of hit or miss Marauder. It's just so tough. But if you get that Chaos Spawn, really nice so it's also bad, but what is it, 25% chance to die, otherwise no injuries. In this kind of league, I think that's pretty powerful, combined with the parry bypass, combined with and with that, I touched on the Magister. It might be a little late now, but I think what you would have wanted to do is build him as ranged. I think I saw Carol doing that. Weapons of Destruction, and then run for order. Try to get order as quickly as possible and Battle Tongue. I mean, I've made so many Magister leaders, and that's all I can find for them, is they make amazing order leaders, but it takes a long time to get there. So,
and the great thing about the Chaos Spawn is that every single mutation on him is sort of good, because you don't lose out on a shield or bow arm or something like that. Everything has use.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think it was Lum, got one, and the first mutation he got was the free perception chance. It's literally the only mutation you don't want, so the poor guy.
Alright, so I know that Mordheim focuses heavy on attracting lure, so good to him. I think he might do well. Let's move on to a different warband here and talk about the Skaven a little bit. And there we have Game Knight, who will be going up to the upper division, and the rest of them are really struggling with Muir's Cat, Handy NL, and Dig. And you have faced some of these opponents too, and they are the second worst performing warband right now, not too far behind thinks of the Skaven.
Well, I like them because they have insanely fast initiative, and they are very fast on the map, so they could get a good position. Although I don't have a lot of experience playing them, I also feel like they could be awesome hit and runners.
All right, so
I've experienced that a bit, but that's about it.
let's see if Full Poker can add anything to that.
Yeah, like it's true that they have some really good movement and they have some really good like henchmen to start off with. Like the warp guide is so solid, heavy armor, and he moves like a, say you have the mercenaries warrior, and he's like spec with both knowledge, Mordheim knowledge, what is it called, like knowledge Mordheim, there we go, and armor proficient. He gets 6 movement from that with heavy armor, and just on a warp guard, just getting like the heavy armor to start off with, you're already like on 6 movement because you have the base 8 and so on. So they have some really good henchman options. But then when I turn into the hero and the like leader options, I'm not as thrilled. I've never been a fan of the assassin adept to start off with. Like I see some uses for him. He can get exhaustion late game and so on. But I don't know. I just feel like he's too squishy and too easy to just like lock down and kill.
Have you seen anything nice that the two Skaven players you faced, Dig and you're about? What have you seen of Dig so far? Because you're gonna face Muir's cat, I guess. Realized. Is there something he's doing that's good that he should focus more on?
Tough question.
You can pass it on to Kirinpa if you want.
Yeah, I think I'll pass. That was a good one.
That's funny. We literally played the first match, so I'm not going to make...
Yeah.
We all had level 0s with no skills. I will say nothing about... But, Skaven. So I mentioned Chaos. Well, first of all, since I just said that again, please put in Blood Offering, not to backtrack. But we mentioned Attracting Lure, but Blood Offering is an A+ skill as well. I think you should pop that skill in the video. That for damage and crit chance, but... Anyway, poisons, obviously, warp poisons are powerful for Skaven. Mobility we've touched on. The henchmen, I really like how you pointed out their mobility. They, without spending any skill, already have high mobility if you use armor and knowledge of Mordheim. And I think Karond and all the level 10 players will say mobility is king. So that's very powerful. And I think the often overlooked Verminkin, there's this mistake again. I think a lot of people see henchmen as melee off their their skills, and I think he's got a melee passive like the zealot, but they actually make very nice with warp poison support archers. You said you're going to post the build of my zealot, and I think it's the exact same build works for Verminkin. Maybe you could swap in, instead of like trial by pain, like a poison ability.
Yeah, we can. Let's take up and showcase Kirinpa's build here while it's talking.
And so yeah, it's a pretty basic build that works across every single ranged henchman, which every warband has, minus sisters, minus undead. So marksmen, brethren, verminkin, and zealots all work same build. Based off of maybe zealot would use trial by pain. And then, like we just said, Verminkin would use maybe one of the poisons as a skill. But the base passives and actives are pretty similar with Adrenaline Rush, Introspection. It gives you 7 red pills on a henchman. 7 red pills.
Yeah, it's a really powerful combination.
Yeah, so you can get a lot of... And they should not be in combat. So that Adrenaline Rush, they have a pool of HP you can tap into. Well leveraged to your advantage. So... Anyway, so they have really nice henchmen. The Night Runner, he makes a nice ranged. He's there with like a mutant, young blood, not that strong, not thought of as. They're all kind of very similar. Those first. That's why it's so weird with the Templars with Witch Hunters. But they're like kind of ranged. You could also do melee, but he's probably best at what I call the Night Stunner. Very nice. You can literally take away 8 blue pills with, what is it, not knee shot, the one that takes away blue pills combined with the warp poison.
Yeah.
You mean numbing poison?
Poison combined with a skill that also removes blue pills.
That's called a pinning
pinning.
shot. So that's pinning shot is when it's mastered -3 blue pills, and numbing poison is -4 blue pills, and you can stack them.
Literally use that a couple times on a couple enemy units, and they're not moving unless they have exhaustion. I mean, how great is that? So I think you can make some really good builds with him. I think Hole Poker touched on the Assassin's one of the worst leaders. I was talking to Game Night and recommending maybe he makes a pretty good melee resist build, and you don't want your leader dying, so melee resistance is pretty strong, even in PvP as well. Definitely in AI against the computer. He's weird. Eshin Sorcerer is very strong, but he's the last unit unlocked. Black Skaven are going to be your bread and butter damage dealers. I think you can highlight with these guys the poisons, and as well as pass of parry and dodge. I forget what the skill's called.
Black Hunger.
Black Hunger. That's going to be also your bread and butter with them. And please, for the love of God, use shurikens over the pistols. 9 times out of 10, those will get you better damage. So
hitting more, etc. They have the same range.
So for the example with that stunning build, you could throw for 2 red pills multiple shurikens, or just do 2 to 3 gunshots. So I think shurikens are the way to go. So.
Hopefully so. Those 2 warbands are pretty far behind. If we move up a little bit, you've talked a little bit, so we can keep this a little bit shorter. But if we want to say something about the Witch Hunters, and since 2 of the 3 remaining Witch Hunter players are already here, I guess it's more of a tip here for the other Witch Hunter player, which is V. Fenrir, who is also playing with double Templars, by the way. But if there's anything else you want to add to that, useful skills, etc.
I think the one thing we haven't talked about is what are you doing with the Warrior Priest? He talked about the Immaculate Flesh. I think the first skill, everyone's, I think, going to be tempted for healing, but I actually think, we talked about this again, Armor of Righteousness. It's probably the most overpowered spell in the game. It's definitely up there, because not only does it give you survivability, but it invokes fear on your enemy.
Yeah,
it's pretty strong.
Yeah, and like compare that to the you can compare it to the Wolf Priest spell, which also gives like kind of damage reduction and some extra
Winter's Chill for sure.
Yeah, Winter's Chill. Yeah, extra chance to catch some miss.
Here's the thing: I know current math he has to me. Armor caps at 95%. I don't know. I didn't realize that. But Winter's Chill still then goes above that, because it's not considered armor. So you can literally get above 95%, which is obviously overkill, but you could see the potential there.
Yeah.
It's a good starting spell to get done.
Yeah, so it also has melee resistance, which stacks with Deny the Heretic. I'd say it was probably the second thing you want to get. I would honestly get healing last, because you can take away the red pills, which reduces damage in a sense. Less red pills, less attacks.
Yeah.
Resistance. And then also on the flip side with the Wolf Priest, he has the -20 hit chance against damage, and it's literally the opposite with Ulfric's you start with.
Yeah.
Which is plus 20% hit chance and plus 20% damage. So it's literally the opposite of Winter's Chill. That's going to help your Templars, who I don't think we've touched on, unless someone gets a really dodgy, annoying henchman locked on them, and then they're just standing there against a wall and missing, not doing anything important. So you want to unlock that Templar and get him on important targets.
Yeah, you'll get some. Yeah.
You want to gum up my Templars. You want them to be killing things and moving on to the next target. You want to focus fire whatever your Templar is stuck on or attacking. So
yeah. So essentially, like talking about the Warrior Priest and like getting back to those two, the Warrior Priest and the Wolf Priest, getting a Witch Hunter Warband would very much be like just stacking high armor and very high hit, like, you know, melee resistances. You'll have some insane percentages on those two.
We were talking, you know, I'm a chaos guy, which is literally the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You know, and so they're like a grinded out, really kind of boring, frustrate the shit out of you kind of. I could tell Abaddon was getting frustrated against me. I think was most recently. You know, I'm shooting him, I'm peppering him with ranged, but he doesn't want to come towards me. You know, because I'm kind of meaty and tanky, so they're just kind of grind you into the ground. They're really annoying to face, but from my perspective, they're not that fun. It's like a methodical kind of warband.
Do you have any input to Rior? And this is, after all, the warband that you actually do play here and that you have got most experience with.
Well, I mean, what I think about this, the weapon the Templars have is actually also extremely important because, as you say, they can be bind up a lot by a dodge or a parry henchman.
Mm-hmm.
That was why I was looking at a purple spear, because it bypasses so much.
Mm-hmm.
And Strongblow, by using those two, I could probably bypass like 50% parry.
Yeah, it means that you can get out of the situation much quicker, yeah.
Yeah, I could kill the henchman that is in front of me.
Yeah.
Indeed.
There's plenty of evidence of what I'm doing in some of your, obviously, videos on your channel, but we're in this awkward period where you have like weird numbers of red pills, and I've been doing swapping a lot. I think people maybe have noticed. With two-handers, it's the magic 2, 3, 4 because of the tiring effect, you know, each attack. So you need that magic 9. With a one-handed, you could do a 2 red pill attack and then do a switch out to a two-hander, do another 2 red-handed attack because you're not tired yet, and then do a 3 red pill attack. So it's a good way to leverage a lot of damage with them.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot to say here about Wolf Priest as well. I personally like the spell that he starts with. I know that Winter Shield is probably his most powerful spell, but they have the spell Ulrich's Gift, which you could master at level 4, and I really love that to support both of the Templar Knights. You, Kiranpa, and you, Rioran, have both talked to me about the Templar Knights, and I've given you some tips. And I think that this is his most important spell, because you have this issue of being bogged down with your 2 main damage dealers, and getting Ulrich's Gift, which is very powerful. You do more damage and you hit almost every single time at 95%. And that could help you to really kill yourself out of situations where you are tied down and go do damage elsewhere. That's also something to consider.
One thing which will be very interesting to see is how players will deal with the risk of curse, right? Like when you have Armor of Righteousness, it's very tempting to just like spam it on everyone you can. But like when you don't have the enchantments necessary, like your curse chance will go way up. What are your thoughts on that? Who are actually like playing Witch Hunters at the moment, like with Warrior Priests and maybe even Wolf Priests as well? Are you gonna spam out Armor of Righteousness everywhere, or are you going to play more conservatively?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know that Kiranpa is lucky. He has the blue curse reduction enchantment, but Rioran might not be as lucky. Let's see what you think.
No, I will not spam that ability. I am extremely afraid that I'm gonna lose my hero that I spent so much money on to master his Armor of Righteousness. There will be tears. Manly tears, but still tears.
That's good to hear. I think it might be like a common issue if you had like maybe some newcomers to Mordheim starting out, like just spamming spells, disregarding curse chance, because those curse can be really devastating. Like just losing your movement and all your offensive points can like put you way out of position and so on. So it's nice that you two are considering that, I believe.
But, you know, in this mid-level kind of thing, that's where the Armor of Righteous, you know, not everyone has purple weapons, so that armor really starts to get, and especially if you start unlocking blue and purple heavies, you can almost become unkillable. It's honestly, and then combine that with low leadership and the fear it can provoke, it just kind of gets out of control, really.
So here is where I think that mercenaries fit quite well into the picture. Because first of all, I have some great hit chance passives that I get. For example, my normal henchmen, the warriors, they have a thing that like when they hit someone. Oh,
could I interrupt you quickly? Let's
sure.
Let's continue whatever you're saying, and then we just move on to mercenaries and talk a little bit about them.
Oh.
And that would be Hole Poker, Abaddon, and True Seeing, of course, who are all three going up to the upper division, and then Paul Ragnarokos, who just barely missed out and going into the lower division, who plays the mercenaries. Continue your thought.
Yeah, well, I know that I will be facing a lot of armor and a lot of like maybe some decent to high melee resistance. So I've opted my warband towards just like maximizing out all the hit chances that I can get, and I already have some really good base ones, right? My warriors, for example, as I talked about earlier, they have a really good base weapon skill, both like the base that they get from level 0 and the max. I think they get 16, if I'm not mistaken. And then they get a passive skill that's really good, called Momentum. And this skill basically works that if you hit with 1 melee attack, your next attack will gain like 20% extra chance to hit, which is really powerful when people start stacking decent or mediocre to high melee resistance. I think there's going to be a really nice counter almost.
What else are you using for that? Are you using maces and skills like Insult?
I have a few maces. Yeah, I have a few maces in my team. I'm probably going to invest in maybe even like Insult and so on to get it even higher. So that's like melee resistance taken care of, I feel. But then there's the big problem, and that's the armor. Luckily, again, I'm mercenaries, so I'm using Access, of course. I'm going to go through 12% armor through that.
With a purple axe, mind you.
Yeah. If I ever get that. Currently, I'm using only blues, and that's I don't know how high the percentage is. Do you know? It's a bit lower, maybe like 8 or something. Anyway, that's not all of my armor penetration though. I'm going with a warlock. Yeah, I'm going with a warlock who's going to be maxing Curse of Rust as his first spell. So Curse of Rust.
That's very interesting. Tell us about that, because we know that True Seeing has already mastered Lightning. I think most mercenary players who are playing up a warlock, they're going for Lightning as fast as possible, but you're not doing that.
No, I don't feel like that. It's very tempting. Like Lightning, it's such a good spell, and you will be going for a much more independent hero by doing so. But I felt that the armor that I will be facing will be so high. Like when I consider like which hunt is going for both Wolf Priest and the Warrior Priest, I became a bit like, will I really only have like one hero who'll be able to damage? Because my ranged will do no damage versus armor, and my melee will also do almost none. So I was considering this, and then I looked through my spell list, and I found this very lovely spell called Curse of Rust. So when I master this spell, I can just spend 2 offense points, and I can hopefully debuff characters so they will gain 40% less armor, which will be essential to getting through those pesky buffs that I will be facing.
It also opens up them to ranged fire from all of your ranged units, because they don't really do that much in the way of ranged damage, and that's particularly true since most players here, they will not have access to the Rune of Perforation, and since many of the ranged weapons do not penetrate armor, they can tend to do a lot less damage to all of these heavy armored units, and that's not ideal for someone who is so ranged heavy as you, so you can see why he's focusing on Curse of Rust here.
Yeah, because otherwise I felt like I would have like an entire team doing nothing, and I'd have one warlock doing something. And I felt like it was better having a warlock who supported the rest of my team, so that the rest of my team could do something. You see?
On that note, how do you feel about what is lead? Spell of lead or whatever?
Yeah,
it
it's
sounds
amazing.
like a really
Armor
good
of Lead.
Yeah, Armor of Lead. It's a very good spell. And I consider it for a long time, but then I felt like it would be something that I look to like later on in the tournament maybe, because I just felt like getting the Curse of Rust and so on, which is so much better. And I don't even know if I will be able to get the levels to get it in this tournament alone.
Yeah, it's interesting to see a warlock more as a support warlock. Everyone thinks of them as damage dealers, but yeah, with the Armor of Lead, Curse of Rust kind of.
Yeah, and Curse of Rust just have so many like advantages. Like it only like if you compare it to like similar spells. I know Skaven has, I think it's called Sorcerer's Curse. It does also like this is a debuff that does like 40% minus in armor and also like 40% minus in dodge and parry. But I think it has like a higher curse chance, and also it costs more offensive points.
Yeah, it costs 3 red pills.
Yeah, so it's
yeah.
So I feel like Curse of Rust was a really solid spell to get, and then of course I've also built him as a semi-ranged character.
So he's gonna get lightning later.
Yeah, of course.
I wanted to mention something because I think 3 of our 4 players, including you, Hull Poker, has starting to eye up the Ogre and has actually gotten him. And I think he's interesting to talk a little bit about compared to the other impressives, because I feel that he might be the best impressive in this particular format that we're playing. And I think it's especially so for Hull Poker's Warband, because as we talked about earlier, if you have a lot of range, you can get away with having less movement and more armor. And the Ogre, unlike what the Pyre website actually says, it only has 5 starting movements. So it's the slowest impressive out there. But you do get light armor and you can wear a helmet, so you can get 50% armor before you are buffed up by the Wolf Priest. And that could make someone like the Ogre virtually unkillable.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific plan for building yours that other people could copy and beat you with?
Yeah, I had some really good plans for my Ogre. So first of all, of course, I wanted to make him like a tanky, really just like, he will basically never die, like a lot of HP, a lot of armor, and then from there I just go like pure damage. My thought process so far, which is like going into like Ignore Pain, light armor, and then I will go, of course I'll get some extra movement from Knowledge Mordheim and so on as well. I had a specific build that I was going for. I can't quite remember the entire setup right now. If you give me a moment, I could look it up.
I would assume
someone
that
else takes over for a second.
I assume if you don't go for guard stance to get further armor, then I would assume that most players would at least go with a sword and some other weapon to be able to parry with the Mercenary Ogre, taking advantage of the light armor and the high weapon skill.
Sure, I won't be doing that though. It's a good strat and it's very solid. But I just figured that this guy will, if someone tries to focus him down, having a parry stance that gets like 2 attacks off is not enough. Instead, getting that 10% extra armor from guard stance will be much more efficient in like mitigating damage.
Especially mitigating range damage. So we'll see, Rioran, do you have anything to say about the mercenaries? You have faced off against True Seeing, and I'm assuming you're dreading to face him again, and then you have also happened to come across Ragnarokus in your game time.
I really dislike them.
Really?
How so?
Range is extremely annoying when you get pinned down in an area where they can just shoot you down and you can't reach them. For example, one time with Ragnarokus, I got unlucky and he was in a building and I was trying to get to him and he got locked down, one of my Templars, and he just made him into a pine cone. He didn't take him down, but he got low and I got very afraid. So I'm a bit afraid of all the range, but I hope I get a purple shield soon so I can mitigate that.
Can I interrupt you guys? Let's quickly go through the 2 remaining warbands, because I do want to get your predictions and get some random questions out before we finish this, so we don't drag on too long. Let's go on to the Sisters of Sigmar, and I think that they're really dangerous, especially if you look at the lineup that this particular warband is coming in. They're currently ranked 3rd, and for the top division, they have been sending up Chris Cardiac and Valentine, both players who got a little bit of experience in the level 10 tournament scene just now for the first time. And in the lower division, they will have the dominating forces of Ainur and Stormraven going for them. So I think they're going to wrap up a lot of wins in the lower division. What do you think makes them tick? We talked about their low ability to get ranged unless they get the Smuggler, but they might go for the Wolf Priest as well, as many others do. But they do have the Comets of Sigmar, and I think many of these players already have mastered the Comet of Sigmar, and that could be a potentially big threat. How would you play with the Sisters of Sigmar? What's the particular strengths, and especially so, what are these 4 players, whoever you have faced, doing well right now? Give some props out. Kinnepa.
Okay, so Whole Poker and I were in that level 10 tournament. We're actually both playing Sisters warbands, so we've had some recent experience with them. Now, so here's the issue. You know, I think just like Chaos, they start a little rough. Which is, though, I think a very overlooked unit is the Sister Superior. She's basically a champion Templar, heavy armor, very strong starting skill, the 4 Sigmar, combined with the Sister Henchmen with their passive when they pick up a wordstone for the movement. That can be very nice with their main issue, not having a lot of ranged. It allows them to get into combat quickly. And I've been seeing a lot of people use these things. And, you know, they have an Augur as their last unlock, which I think no one takes at all. So they start off with the units that they're going to want. So, you know, they can get them to higher levels, whereas we talked about your mercenaries a little bit, your champion's your last unlock.
Yeah.
And probably one of your best units, but, you know, it's coming in late, so it's a lot harder for you.
Yeah.
So, also, the Purifier, level 4, her starting spell is the Comet, so she can get Mastery by level 4, which is pretty nice. And then I think literally everybody should take the Smuggler, just to get that extra bit of ranged. Right?
And movement as well. Focusing on that.
Yeah. So I think, you know, we talked about the Witch Hunters. We really didn't mention any of their skills. Maybe Trial by Pain is something. I think that's an indictment of that they don't have that many great skills. Talked about Guard Stance. That's about it for them. They don't have a lot either. And I think Sisters are kind of, or both, they don't have a lot of inherent Sister skills. What they have, though, is their unique kind of spells, the Comets, which are nice, the healing circles.
I've seen many, if I can interrupt you, I've seen many of the Sisters players here using Righteous Fury.
We're not using that in the level 10, so I guess that says something. I don't know about that one.
There's one skill that the Sisters have that I'm quite interested in, that I really like, and it's called Absolute Faith. It is a skill that increases your all alone fear terror, but also your route test chance. So essentially, if you are looking to win games, you can go with the matriarch and just get a mastered Absolute Faith. And I think at the mastered level, it will give you an extra 30% chance to not fail your route tests. And combine that with a high leadership, you will almost never fail any route test whatsoever. So
I don't know if Aenir likes that. I've seen Rorator, but
yeah, I really like the skill because you can really just I wouldn't say disregard leadership, but you can really at least in the early game focus on some other aspects like intelligence to get that knowledge, Mordheim, for example, and so on.
And then quickly, I think everyone's doing it too. They're getting that Maiden. You said Ogre. I think the Maiden is probably, in my opinion, the best impressive, given her ability to use consumables, have complete immunity from all these ranged warbands we're talking about, and her ability to wear heavy armor and enter buildings. And I think I think Maidens will only rise because they start rough and they finish really strong. So
that's true. What I want to mention here, that you talked about the Sister Superior, and when it comes to warband building, I think in the beginning it doesn't matter too much, but as you progress along, you should try and adjust your initiative that your units will end up in so that they complement each other and come in the right combinations. And particularly with the Sister Superior, there's a very nice trick that you can do, that if you have one of your important units that you want to catch up with someone on, you have it just 1 or 2 initiative above the Sister Superior, then you use a delay, then the Sister Superior uses 4 Sigmar on that delaying unit, and then you will get +3 movement with just 1 blue pill less, because that's the cost of the delay. Then you can move around with +3 movement, and then when it's the next turn, you still have the buff, And you will start before the Sister Superior, so you will have +3 movement on that turn as well. And this could give you a nice movement boost to catch up to that annoying young blood archer that Hole Poker is hiding in the building over there, if you want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think people should start thinking about that a little bit. Adjust their initiative to work with the warband. And it comes with every single skill, but Sister Superior is a very, very good example of that.
Same note, to give compliment, Aenir use Staggering Blow, which along those same lines is you can then use your initiative to bring a unit down to then skip them. So yeah, or niche, if you take a smuggler, I think maybe a knee shot, or her using Liquid Courage.
I heard that Ryoran has a pretty foolproof plan to beating the comets that these Sigmars will be churning out. Can you enlighten us, Ryoran?
I mean, I don't have a foolproof plan. I guess I have a plan. It's just stacking magic resists and getting amulets. I'm lucky and I have a purple one, and I'm gonna try and get close to them. But the problem is when I faced Valentine, for example, B3.1, that he spawned in a house where he already had his spellcasters on top and his henchmen in the bottom. So I had a really hard time getting to him.
A game that you lost, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I lost. And the biggest issue with that was I started scattered in around like 3 areas with my guys. And he could see one of my Templars. And in the first round, he almost killed my Templars with comets because he fired 6 comets in total on him. All of them hit. All of them did 50 plus damage.
Yeah. That's one of the nice things with going with amulets, as you say, but since we do get consumables, and Kinopa mentioned that earlier, you can stock them up, and since, you know, magical damage, you're mostly gonna get that from the sisters, so just save your talismans until you face the sister warbands. Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's move on, everyone. To I don't want to drag this on too much. Let's move on to the last warband that we haven't talked about, which is the measly, lowly undead. They are performing so awful right now, just at the top of the league here. What can we say about them? 3 of the players are going out into the upper division, which will be myself, Karond, Doc, and Rarator, and by the way, Rant will be moving down to the lower division. What can we say about the undead warband?
You play them, you start. I know you've had some videos about them.
Yes, I can do that. Well, I have. I'm gonna be hesitant, but I would like to say that I am handicapping myself by using ghouls, but it's very intentional because I do like the speed, and I think that the zombies are so poor in the beginning, especially without necromancer support, that you do need the speed. And I'm gonna keep to using mostly ghouls, but I have been tempted to mix in zombie or 2 as I level up. But I still think that using speed here is gonna be important. We talked about how poor the undead is in the range department, and they will be. Even the dregs here, they have a very low movement. They can get up to 6 movement with Knowledge Mordheim, which is nearly not enough of what most other ranged units will be having. So they're easily caught. And I feel that using the inherently much faster movement of the vampires and the crypt horror and the vampire thrall, I think that goes well in hand with using fast ghouls with Knowledge Mordheim. And then you can overwhelm any kind of player that is focusing too much on the range. And that's what I like to do. I like to use a crypt horror because they are bugged and they can go into buildings, so you can never avoid them entirely. There are some jump up points that you can't use with the crypt horror that you can use with a maiden or an executioner, but overall you can just consider them as a maiden or an executioner, just slightly better in the melee department. I like that you can use body reconstruction. I think every undead player should focus on that and make that a priority. We talked about how important critical hit resistance is to making sure that your units stand up and you don't lose games or lose units over that. Remember that if you do get a critical hit on you, even if you stand, you have open wounds plus 10%, minus 10% hit chance for the rest of the game. And you also get a much higher chance. I think it's plus 10% chance for each open wounds on the injury table afterwards. So you get a much worse injury and you have a higher chance of getting an injury if you take a lot of open wounds. So try and focus on critical resistance, and undead is the very best on that. Otherwise, I don't feel like it's too much to say. I focus on dregs a bit more. Some people might use necromancers because you do need a little bit of range. If you have only a pure melee warband, you will be stuck when people hide in buildings. Yes.
What did you think about the match with Rorator in his... he seems to very much love those traps. I don't even know what they're called, but you saw it in action.
I see you, for instance, is one of them. It's the least useful map trap, I think. And then they have the... what it's called, the death trap, right? The death trap is the one that does damage, and it has a debuff to melee and ranged hit chance as well. Often I find that just with the poison globes, people tend to put traps in the wrong place. They put them right where they know that the combat will be going. And as soon as one of the enemy units move into position near one of those traps, they tend to trigger the trap, and then you tend to have a lot of allies around us, so you usually take more damage than your enemy. So I would try and avoid that.
He used Death Stench as well, which is another unique skill as well.
I kind of like that stench. It's a nice complement to Insult. Does basically the same thing. You just get parry and dodge chance removed, but I kind of like that skill. It's a nice complement. If you have a lot of units with Insult, might not hurt to have one unit with that stench. And Raritor used it to very good effect because he targeted a lot of units in that clumped up fight.
Also, with your ghouls, their passive is, I think, is pretty strong with shuffling the initiative ladder, especially if you use it with staggering blows. And I think it also can reduce crit resistance, right? I'm not sure exactly all three things it
-5 initiative, -3% crit chance, and -3% dodge and parry.
Yeah, so that initiative one can really stack, because they do stack. Yeah, I mean, it's random which one procs, but combined with staggering blows, I could see that really saving one of your units or causing your enemy to die by it suddenly being skipped in the turn order. So that's a nice skill with the ghouls, I think.
Indeed. What do you think, Poker? Do you have something to add to this?
Well, it seems like most things that can be said have been said. I like the fact that the ghouls are immune to all alone and so on, but they also have a drawback, which is that they can't flee or retreat, and that can be a bummer sometimes.
Indeed.
Compared to the zombies, which I think can flee and retreat, right? They have no problem with that. Yeah.
They can.
So it's a bit of, you have to be mindful where you initially engage with your ghouls. You can't just engage one target and then suddenly that target can't be killed and you've lost, well, basically 2 henchmen for the entire game because they can't disengage.
Rioren, you have practiced a few games against the undead. How do you like them?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I mean, the undeads are extremely annoying, especially because the ghouls, if built right, have an insane dodge chance. Which apparently my guys don't care about because I hit through your dodge chance like nothing.
Yeah, I know. We've done a few practice games.
Yeah. But the thing about them I hate is that they're easy to bind up my Templars. Even though they can't disengage, they're still too difficult to kill. But I would always go for his dregs because they're easy to kill. And they can't move that far because they have to shoot and use all their blue, SP on that. So if you can corner them and get them fast, you can easily take down 2 heroes, which is a lot of moral minus to him. And could provoke a route test if you're lucky and get his leader or his impressive or whatever he brings with him.
Indeed.
I think that gets back a little bit to, I wanted to mention this, and I think Skaven should focus a bit more on numbing poison than warp poison. You can see where numbing poison can really neuter a dreg, one of the few units that in the undead. I see everyone taking the red pill warp poison. I think numbing poison's a good choice too. So.
I kind of like warp poison, I have to say, because Well, you do take away red pills, so you take away their offense. But if you take away most of their blue pills and they can't move into combat, then you've effectively taken away all of their red pills as well.
Could be really, really tough for the Dreg, who's already low movement. So especially an Archer, which will run out of reload very quickly as well. So.
You're really you're really like controlling the battlefield with numbing poison, I feel.
Yeah, and you can take away stances as well completely.
Yeah.
I want to move on a little bit faster, and we're gonna do some predictions here from everyone, and after that we're gonna end up with a few random questions, and then we have wrapped this up. And we're gonna start here with predicting the lower division, how it will actually turn out. We do already know which players are gonna be there, and we see here in front of us, and the players we are talking to here, they can see the lower division of the players, and we're gonna see if we can get some estimate of where they are going to end up and your predictions. And we're going to start with Hole Poker here, I think, and start with the lower division and see what you think. Who's going to end up in the top of the lower division? And we just go from rank 1 to 11. And if you want to give a few words on some of the players, you can do so as well.
I feel like, so first of all, I feel like Anya is a very strong contender. I play like a single exhibition against him, and just like tried out my warband versus his. We didn't finish the game because we desynced in the end, but I felt like he had a lot of punching power behind his warband. He's playing Sisters, by the way, and he's really using comets and his like his maiden to like great efficiency. I feel he you try to hide behind these like kind of makeshift walls, but there's like a small crack somewhere, and he just like finds that spot and like shoots the comets straight through. I feel like he's good in abusing like comets and magic, so I think he's going to be a top contender for sure.
And the next 3 spots, remember that with the lower division we are mostly aiming for the top 4 spots here, because those are the ones that's going to make it to the playoffs. See what you think of those Hole Poker.
I haven't played against like most of these players, so I can't say much about all of them. Some I will play against. I think that Storm Raven might be like a dark horse, also coming up quite high, might reach like a 4th or 3rd spot. I feel like Ragnarokkus might take like the 2nd spot. Let's just say that. And let's put I've barely seen like most of these players, so I have really like no point of reference for most of them. It's like Anya, Dig, Storm Raven. Those are the players I really know.
Try another one for 4th place here then. Besides these 3, who else is gonna make it to the playoffs?
It might very well be like Morjax.
All right.
Yeah, let's just say Morjax.
Yeah, I don't think we might. You don't even have to add any of the other players unless you think that someone is going to challenge these 4. There's someone that has a chance, or is it cemented it's going to be these 4 players?
I think it's pretty much set.
Kinnapal wants to weigh in and get his guess underway.
Chopping in and out. Were you asking Roran or?
No, we're asking you now. Lower division. Who's gonna end up on the top here?
Well, it's tough. We obviously had these problems where people dropped out. So you have Aenir. I think is he couldn't help that he started 0-3. Otherwise, I think he's in the upper division. So that's pretty logical, right? And he's done well for himself. Number one, It's hard to peg this guy. He took over a week losing record, just like Hole Poker. He'd probably be maybe first of the division, probably, if he hadn't taken a record. So I think Morjax has done well from when he's entered, so I would say he has a pretty good shot. Experience, he was in the level 10 tournament with us, and he's done well for himself the first week, like I said, so I don't know what his levels units are and whatnot. And for my division, I know Storm Raven has started awful, but he started against some of the best opponents, and he finished with 3 victories and had a tough one against Aenir, which is why I think Aenir, you have to put ahead of him, because they literally just played, and I think he beat him pretty soundly. But he had sisters building up, and like I said, I think they finish stronger than how they start. So again, I think Ragnarokis should make it. If you look at the people that finished 7th, 8th, you'd think they'd continue to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good to remember that all of the points are wiped clean now, and it's all about the state of the warband.
And I think Register win and 0 out of action against this is going to finish last, if I had to guess.
Wow, yeah, that's a sound guess. Sound guess. Good.
Well, I think that one will come true. So,
Rioren, what will you guess for this lower division here? Top 4 players.
Well, I mean, I don't know half of them, but I'm pretty sure that Ragnarokis and Mordjax is gonna make it to top 4.
All right.
Even though I killed one of Mordjax's heroes.
Well,
and Einar.
Continue.
Einar is also gonna be up there, and for the 4th, I actually have no idea who I want to put up there. So I'm gonna take Lum.
Lum is gonna be the good one.
Yes.
Yeah, probably he's learned a lot from talking to Kinopon and got at his tactics, and maybe he will focus a bit more on attracting lures. He's already started doing. Yes. Personally, I will also pick Einar. Like Hole Poker, I actually did a practice game against him, and I noticed that his level 7 impressive and level 9 heroes is gonna crush everything in the lower division, I think. I don't think anyone has a chance against him, sadly, and yes, he should be in the upper division, but he started out with 2 losses right on the beginning, and I think he should have made it. Besides that, I would actually guess that Mordjax gets into a 2nd spot. And I think that Stormraven might actually recover. He lost his level 4 impressive, but I think he's gonna get back into it. And I'm not too sure about Ragnarokis, to be honest. I'm actually going to go for a wild card here, and I'm gonna guess that, by the way, Rant is gonna make it. He plays the undead after all, and I'm gonna root for my own team here. And I hope that he can do it. He has lost a lot, yes. But the only 2 victories he's actually managed to do has been against Game Night and Ragnarokis, I believe. No, and Mordjax. He also beat Mordjax. So I think he might have a good shot. If he's lucky, he can do it, I think. What about the upper division? If you have any guesses here. Let's start off with Rioren. Remember that with the upper division here, the placement doesn't matter at all. We don't get anything for finishing highly. It's more of a matter of honor, and I think all 4 of us will probably go out as hard as we can, no?
Yep.
I'll do my best.
So,
my own placement. Shall I say my own placement first?
Yeah.
I will be at the bottom.
What? Which position?
I doubt that. Like it's.
No, you're gonna be 12th. Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, I'm probably gonna be. I'm aiming for like top 6.
But you're gonna be bottom.
No, I hope not.
Should I put you down as a 6th then?
Yeah. And the top 3 is probably gonna be Hole Poker.
What do you think?
Kitten Paw. And Game Night.
In that particular order, right?
Yeah. No. Yep.
All right. You have a strong supporter here, Hole Poker. Do you have any other guesses, Rioren, that you want to guess up here?
Well, I mean, Karond is gonna kill everybody he's gonna face, and he's gonna end up number 1. But yeah, that's not fun to predict that, because that's gonna happen. I'm actually interested in seeing how the players that are in the other division do, and I hope I get a lot of experience out of it.
I think it's a nice guess. Yes, I've been doing pretty well in the 2nd division, obviously, but. There is another player here that is so far undefeated in this league, and that's Hole Poker.
Yeah, I've had some good luck versus my tough opponents, and I've managed to stay victorious all throughout. Well, my opinion on this board, I feel like, of course, Karond will be at the top. I think we're gonna see Chusing at the top as well. Kid and Poor, maybe I'll have a place as well. And then is the question of the other players here, I think that Rioran, I think you will do better than you yourself think. I think you're a much better player than most here. Even though you started not long ago at all, you've really picked up some essential points on how to play, and I think you're going to be among the better or even the best players in this league.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Maybe I should mention a sixth as well. Hell, why not say that Valentine gets a sixth place or something like that? I think Valentine might do good. Is V31? I think it's his name in this. He might do
He'll
good.
definitely do good.
I've always liked sisters, so I'm gonna root for them. Yeah.
All right, Kid Paul, do you want to make a guess there as well?
Yeah, we focused a bit on the top. When this started, I remember Game Night even said when he did an update on his Twitch or whatever, Division 2 was to be the hard division or experienced veteran division, and Division 1 was the unknowns and 7i.
Yeah.
Pretty tough division. You know who? Abaddon really surprised me. I think Aenir would say that since he lost to him and others have lost to him. He finished, I think, second.
He might be second. We don't know yet.
Yeah, it depends on Whole Poker. I mean, Whole Poker came late too, but he obviously did a good showing. And I didn't know if you're going to ask these or not, but you're asking about one of our more interesting matches or opponents. And Rorator really, really surprised me. I mean, watching the video against Aenir, who we've said is a good player, and he just humiliated him. It was pretty rough.
It was.
So he obviously knows what he's doing. He took out my units. I don't remember, and he had a great chance to. Now, random. It was a scattered deployment, but he is. I played him literally like 5 times, as I did Whole Poker. I think I was gonna lose a unit. He really knew what he was doing, and I think he's gonna be a tough opponent in the upper division. Especially being undead.
What do you think?
And I really just think that, so much of this depends on who draws who at what point and what injuries occur.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so hard to say, but I think he'll be in the upper 6. I think what's going to be really fun is the middle of the pack. I think it's going to be, there's so many equally skilled players. That's the whole point of this now. I think someone that might surprise, honestly, is Carol. I mean, so we talked about this, I think, off the tape, but if you look at these war bands, like literally everybody does parry.
Yeah.
There's Carol. So if he gets the right possessed builds leveled up, if he gets an order magister, he gets all the right things to go his way, I think he could just eat us apart. Feet, if he could get on the ranged units, chew up the armored units with weapons of destruction, if he could do a certain thing, he could really just cause a lot of destruction with all these parry warbands. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here.
I think it's an interesting thing to note here that while I do think that the players that come from the level 10 tournament, like myself, Kid and Pa, Whole Poker and Trusing, are probably going to be stamping down on the top 4 spots. That's the expectation here because of our experience. I think it's worth noting that we have played quite a few less games than some of these players, and some of them have done really good playing against the AI. Played Deadlist, played Brutals. I think you will be surprised that some of these players do have more purple weapons and more levels than you do initially. So there could be many tough games here in this upper division, no doubt.
Part of Roar, you don't want to underestimate or make assumptions, but he comes out the gate with all these high hit point, leveled up, good equipment. It's like, ooh, no matter how good you are or whatnot.
Yeah,
it's
indeed.
A lot of skills and stuff. So.
Indeed, yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for. I think that Rioran, I think he can be a nice surprise here. Like you believe in Carol, I think Rioran can actually shock some people. I don't know if he thinks it himself right now, but he plays the Witch Hunters. I think they are the best warband in this particular format, and I think that people are going to be really annoyed facing his Arm of Righteousness, Deny the Heretic, and all of those kind of spells, as well as the 2 double Templars. I think people are in for a nasty surprise against Rioren and Kirenpa, of course, but Rioren is going to be a big surprise, I think. He might even
can we quickly
someone. Yeah.
I was just quickly curious which match everyone's looking forward to the most, if you want to just say that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's start with Whole Poker.
The match I'm looking forward to the most. Oh, it's such a hard choice. Like to be fair, I wanna meet all of you 3. Like I'm really looking forward to all of those games. The one I wanna meet the most, I kind of wanna have a rematch with Kid and Paul. But then again, I really wanna meet you, Karond. Like I really wanna just like see and see how my warband compares. You know?
We never played each other competitively. We played a lot of practice games though. Whole Poker is my little brother. Who's the player that you want to face the least? Who's you?
It's probably you as well.
Can I ask that question? Is that alright?
Yeah. I think that's you as well. I'm quite. I know that I will take like heavy casualties. It's gonna be devastating. I'm gonna afterwards. I'm just gonna be almost crying. But it's gonna be like it's gonna be such an amazing game. Just like seeing, how my warband really compares, because you've done such a good job just like cultivating each and every one of your like units, and it's gonna be a blast playing, I believe.
Let's take the question on to Rioren then. Who are you looking forward to face the most?
I mean, if I could get my way with how it's gonna happen, you are gonna face first Kitten Paw, then Whole Poker, then Choosing, and then you're gonna face me.
Oh.
Thank you. Hoping I will be crippled. So you are the one you want to face me when I am down on my knees. That's what you're saying.
Well, I mean, that's the only way I can get a 50-50 chance of actually winning.
All right. Who is?
Yeah.
Is this a silly question? Who do you want to face the least, or? Choosing. Because he actually won against him in the very first game, and Choosing is out for revenge.
Oh yeah, he's gonna kill my guys and loot their corpse, and yeah, it's not gonna be very nice.
Let me make my case then before we round off with Kid and Paul started this question. I think my most interesting game is gonna be to face Whole Poker. I'm gonna say that right away. I think it's gonna be interesting because it's super aggressive against very defensive, and I would love to play Whole Poker for something that actually matters for once. Yeah. And I think it's a very interesting mix as well with my terror and his mediocre leadership units. So I think that's gonna be nice. I look forward least to playing Doc, I think. I mean, he's my undead brother, and I know that he is gonna have a tough time here, so I'm hoping that we can still enjoy a decent game without him feeling too put down by that game. And you, Kirenpa?
I'm surprised Whole Poker didn't say he's least looking forward to playing me, because I am out for blood.
Hell yeah.
He got me in this league after our 6th attempt or something, and where I was probably winning most of the first ones, and then he got me in the Mordheim madness. So honestly, I'm looking forward to the match, but the most may surprise people, but Karond and I have literally never played each other before, so it should be fun finally going up against them. And then the least, again, matches are gonna be dangerous, but I just think Carol, because of the mechanics. I think he could do a lot if he does it correctly. That parry bypass, which actually I don't use much of it, but just the potential to hunters, I think, is there. So
let me put up another question for everyone here. And this is a bit of a rivalry, because I know there's a little bit of a rivalry between the first and second division. And Kirenpa was saying that, first division was initially thought to be, the easy division with the new players, and the second division, the tough players. And I know we've been taunting each other over this, but combined, we're gonna have 6 players in the upper division from Division 1 and 6 from Division 2 in the upper division and in the lower division. Division 2, fast response by Rioran right away. No consideration whatsoever. Like, Division 2 will crush everyone, but he's part of Division 2, of course. I'm gonna say Division 2 as well, because I'm gonna rely on myself. And I did also predict that Rioran was gonna be a big surprise to everyone. And true seeing, naturally, he's gonna be at the very top.
What do you think, Hidden Paul?
I think it gets back to like who faces who win. It's so random, but I at this point with the top 6, I think we stack up very nicely. But I can only speak to who I've faced. I know Whole Poker's tough. I know Roarter's tough. I hopefully I'm going to be tough. So even Doc with his Undead, he's our 6th place finisher. I think he compares very well as a 6th place finisher. So,
which would be Carol from Division 2.
Oh, and we got Valentine as well. He's also a beast.
Yeah, Valentine can be it can be dangerous, I think.
Someone we literally haven't mentioned yet. This poor guy is Chris Cardiac, who I've been talking to a lot and helping to coach. We with this level 10, him and Valentine. One day, I hope to God we get this video of their second PvP. It's probably the best match I've ever seen.
Hey, that's one game to look forward to, actually. Chris Cardiac is gonna face Valentine once more. This is sisters against sisters. It's gonna be another 3-hour game, maybe.
It was the most craziest game I've ever seen. It ended with a firebomb, and it killed his last unit. And I just wanted to see everyone die. It would have been most fitting, but that's how he killed the last guy.
Let's
Sisters warband too, and I don't think we've mentioned him at all. And he has experience,
So what is your guess then? First division or second division?
Again, I have to take my division here. So
Whole Poker, what about you?
Yeah, I feel like our division also has some really good players. Like I know Division 2 has you have of course Karond and Rioran and Trusing, but we have some pretty damn good players as well. And I think like Abaddon and Marato, they will really surprise.
I think you guys will dominate in the lower division though, but not in the upper division.
Karen, can we have a truce until we kill those guys?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's just we say that we play each other, but we play an exhibition, and then we just
Dead versus Witch Hunters truth. Huh? What is this?
Oh yeah.
Let's round off here. Every single player will get one last question that they can ask to each of us or to a specific player, or say something, and then we just wrap it up. Let's start with Rioran.
All right, my question is actually something that's been brought up in the forums and everything. It is, how do you guys feel about people bringing in their reinforcements or backups in a PvP game when they know they are kind of destined to lose? Like they bring in their henchmen and still use, of course, their heroes to get experience on them. But when their henchmen die, they then voluntarily route if they pass the test.
Did you say my name?
Yeah, you can go first.
I mean, I think it's important. I think it's a part of the game mechanic that people playing. I've made proposals you've seen. I think everyone should get a slot in the tournament. Otherwise, as the losers division or whatever goes along, and you're not I think you start to lose motivation. You'll play sloppy or just quit or whatnot. So I think you want to keep people interested, and if that's what keeps people interested and allows them to make a comeback, Storm Raven being probably the most obvious example. And it's a mechanic, and I think it's something that you have to have in order to make things balanced again. You see it in all the professional sports with people throwing certain matches to rest star players. I don't know if soccer, football, whatever, European football does something similar, but you just see it in anything competitive that you have to be able to bounce back. And I think it's fine. I think organic, a system's rules organic, and players are intelligent, and they'll find the best ways to we're talking me versus Karond and I bring all my scrubs. Yeah, we've talked about that. That's just stupid. But if you need to kind of regroup for a few matches, I don't see the big deal. I really don't.
Let's try and keep the responses under 1 minute and go to Whole Poker. What do you think?
I'm not entirely on board. I see the argument that this is like a path to choose. It's an okay strategy to not take too much damage when you face other players. And I see the thought process, but I don't quite agree. Like when I like spectators see a match, I don't want to see a person just like throw the match. Like the tournaments won't get interesting if that's like the way to go. And I feel like currently it's a bit too strong of a strat, maybe. And like for me, I just don't want to see like a few matches and a lot of matches just going that way, like people throwing. That's not like exciting. That's not fun to watch. That's not fun to play either. And that's what we are playing this for fun.
All right. I don't like this either. I think that as we switch to the new leagues now, in the lower division, it's not going to matter because they have an incentive to win their games. And yes, you can throw one game against Ainur maybe, because you know you will be crippled otherwise, but you're aiming to get in the top 4 spot. That means you need to win. We're gonna go full out anyway, because I don't see any incentive. And I think if they're gonna do a BBL League Season 3, they need to change out the system so that there is always an incentive to win. And you always have to have some sort of incentive as well to, you know, keep on playing. And if you're losing, that's true, but you have to figure out a system where everyone can feel like they are gaining something on winning. And that's the most important part. I hope that answers your question, Rioran. Let's go forward with Holpoker if you have anything to say or a question or something of the kind.
Well, I feel like I was actually about to ask the same thing as Rioran, so it kind of like took the words out of my mouth.
Okay,
I feel like.
Think for a little bit and we go through Kid and Paw.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I don't know. I was just thinking back. We've been talking a while, even before this was recorded, but something I've wanted to mention, really honestly, we talked about nerve shot. I think I talked about Carol and his advantage. I think nerve shot is going to be an essential skill with their ranged units to break the web of steel. What do you guys think are going to be we talked about like critical resistance. What do you guys feel are some very important skills now moving forward?
Let's start with Rioran.
Resilient. Resilient is pretty basic skill, but the stun resist is extremely valuable and something that's kind of a must-have on anybody. Along with Hardy, like having the basic covered is as important as have like an ace in the hole.
I can like see the argument for going resilient, but I haven't. That's the thing with my Warbandel reveal. I haven't actually gone for resilient. Instead, I've chosen to opt for a really high toughness rating or toughness stats. Because I feel like there's going to be very few players, if any, that actually focus on critical hits. And if they don't focus on accuracy at all to get critical hits, then what's the point in going resilient? Like they're not going to get like over 12 or 13%. You can easily get that percentage with just like toughness alone. And I've instead spent those skill points on something like Hardy or Shield Specialist or something else, maybe Knowledge Mordheim. So that's my take on the issue.
I will say that you need to get a stance. I want the players to start thinking about getting Web of Steel, Sidestep, or Defensive Stance. And there are situations in PvP when that might not be the best choice. But remember that every other game here we're playing against the AI, and nothing is as powerful as the stances in letting your units live and not take any damage in any of your PvEs, no matter the difficulty that you play, as with the stances. So you need to get stances on most of your units as soon as possible, unless they are ranged. And I think that's going to be really important, and I hope that people are starting to do that, even if it's a costly investment.
Even if they are ranged, I feel like it is a good choice. Like for example, on my marksman, I'm thinking about going sidestep, because when they do get locked down, and they will get locked down at some point, they can still kind of just like they can just stay there, and like if there's a henchman attacking them, they'll still basically not die. Like you're gonna get like 2 attacks a turn. You have a sidestep, you're gonna dodge those 2 attacks most of the time. He's not gonna die in a match, right? So I feel like even on ranged units, it could be a good idea. because you're gonna come into situations where you will get locked down with many units.
Have you thought of a question yet, Tall Poker, to finish this up?
Well, we tapped into like changing out your entire warband, but like minimizing risk in general is like a subject worth talking about, because we've seen this, or at least you can like at least guess at some points when people are like switching out maybe weapons and so on for just like being afraid of the other person just looting them. And I think it's kind of interesting because I talked to Karond. It was not today, it was a few days ago, but we talked about like actually might be not like in your best interest to loot another player's weapons, so on, because like weakening them will make it so that all other players that they will face will have an easier time, right? So in kind of crippling a player, you can have you can basically just make it much easier for other players to progress through the tournament and get less injuries, and
We talked about this earlier before the broadcast, and I said that if I would go on and loot someone blind so that they cannot really compete anymore, then I have had a tough match against them, probably, because they have been full strength. I get a little bit of loot that's not worth much gold, and every other opponent in my league is going to have a very easy game against that opponent and essentially power level through them. And that's not in my best interest. I'm just making sure that all of my opponents get stronger instead of myself if I loot them blind.
And it's also just nice because getting looted of like all of your good gear is not a nice feeling. Like you lose a lot of motivation. So just for like, mood and everything, it's just going to be good. If it's for your self-interest and like nice for others as well, like that's all good, I feel. So I'm also going to be following this. I'm not going to loot my opponents heavily, or even at all.
All right, and for myself, well, I was actually going to take that. Thank you for stealing my question, Whole Poker. But I will expand that a little bit. I think, and I'm hoping that we won't see players punishing each other as much. That goes into this line of thinking. But if you have killed someone, you can go and loot them, and even if you don't want any of their stuff, you can pick up something and drop it back down, and that will count the character as looted, which means that they have a much higher chance of losing all of their stuff after the game is over, regardless if you took it or not, and of course they have a slightly higher chance of getting injured. And I don't really like the practice stuff, taking up stuff and then dropping it down just to make sure that your opponents suffer. And I hope that we don't get to see that as we progress. And I'm personally going to make a vow here not to do that for the rest of this.
Does that work with Wordstone? Because I know people take Wordstone all the time.
Sadly, it does. And it does with taking their, the little trinket as well. But there's nothing you can do about that specifically. But not trying to be, a jerk about it and just take up their white stuff and put it back just so that they get more injuries. That's more what I mean.
Leads me to a second follow-up thing. I was last playing Abaddon. I think that was my last match, and I had the trinket thing. And the last unit I killed before he routed was his archer with the trinket, and he immediately voluntarily routed. He could have gotten the secondary objective. It was all my turn coming up. Does anyone think that that's kind of sketchy? Do you think you should wait until it's your turn again, quote unquote? You come up in the line before you route. You have the opposite with Ainur, who just was getting creamed though, and kept losing units because he didn't route when it was his turn or whatever. So, what do you guys think about that?
Let's make this a final question. Rioren, what do you feel?
Well, I feel like that's a case-by-case basis. I mean, if you have an agreement that you will only loot that item and not attack his guys, and he can then route on his next turn, I don't see a problem with it. But then again, it's also valid for him to do that because that will weaken his opponent. So it's a dick move. It's a very, very dick move, but it's still a move.
Okay, Whole Poker.
I feel like this is actually quite an important question, because if you are winning per se, you win one match, right? And if you can get the objective and then you get a PB and get the objective there as well, you're basically progressing at the same speed as everyone else. Like even if the others that are losing, they get a few more injuries, but they still get roughly the same amount of XP because you will have the same objectives completed. So when people voluntarily route in this way, you won't have in a lot of the cases you won't have the opportunity to get the objective completed in your PvP matches. And that kind of makes it so, in one way, it's a good catch-up mechanic, because then the players who are winning will get like weaker warbands, and so it kind of balances out. But in the long run, it might be that the winning players, if they don't go out of their way to complete the objectives, they might lose big time, XP-wise.
I'm not overly concerned about this, but I do recognize that it's very annoying because you're chasing the objective. If you want to chase for the win, you kind of need the objective to keep up, as Holpoker is saying. And I did experience this when I faced Game Knight, who took my idol and went around the map and hid it on one of the search points so it would be invisible. And I had the same thing against Carol, who I also had to take his idol, and he took his idol earlier and then he went on to camp in the house with all of his units surrounding the unit that had the idol. So I could never get to it. And both of those moves are just to make sure that I don't get it. And I had the same thing against True Seeing as well. He wanted me to do an honorable duel against him. And when I agreed to it, he took his turn, killed my low-level guy, and then voluntarily routed. So I think we can just expect these kind of moves to happen. Like, you can't really prevent it, and just kill as much as you can. But please don't be a dick about it and try to punish them further than that.
I must say that I really like Kiddenpool's proposal in that sense, because then if you get your turn, if it's your turn coming up, then you'll have maybe you'll have at least a bigger opportunity, a bigger chance to actually complete the objective, get that token off the body, or get that extra movement to get to your wagon with the opponent's idol, and so on. I think that the middle ground option that Kiddenpool proposed is quite a good idea. It might
basically what the AI does, so you do that all the time in PvE subconsciously. You're like, all right, I killed that guy, my turns are coming up, this guy will pick up the trinket, then it'll be their turn and it'll route or not. So you do that. Like, I had 3 turns in a row, I killed the guy with a ranged unit, then I was going to pick it up with the guy right there. All right, good game. I wasn't going to punish him for the same reasons we talked about. So yeah, finding maybe that middle ground, I don't know.
And maybe that should be a rule for the next league.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't his turn?
No.
You go down, you can immediately hit escape. As soon as you go below the route threshold, you can route, even if it's not your turn, which is...
Oh, I thought it was his turn, like his guy's turn.
No.
Finishing my turn.
He has not taken a route test yet, but he can still voluntarily route, because he's going to be on the line, and then he doesn't lose anything. And the attacker only loses.
Oh, sorry, then I misunderstood it.
Yeah, I leveraged for a unit specifically that went out of action because I thought it was worth it to get that trinket. And then when he immediately did that, it's like, well, obviously that wasn't worth it, And if I knew he was going to do that, So I don't know if it needs to be a...
All right, everyone. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Kinopon. We've actually been talking for a lot. I think we're 1 hour and 45 minutes or something like that. I've lost track of time. Thank you all very much for your opinions and tips and tricks and everything going into the upper and lower division. And we wish all of the players very much good luck and hope that you can keep your spirits up, even if it seems like you're destined not to make the playoffs. Just keep having fun, and hopefully you will learn something. We've all been there and lost a lot of games, all of us, and that's how you get better. Thank you for listening in, and I hope you enjoyed this. Maybe we will have another one right before the playoffs. And thank you very much for Hole Poker.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much to Kiddenpaw for participating.
Thank you for hosting game night and doing the videos, Karond, and I'll see you guys out on the streets.
And thank you, Riorin, for being our backup reserve here and chiming in with all of your helpful tips.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun. and a learning experience.
All right, we will end the broadcast right there, and good luck in the upcoming upper division, all of you. I'll see you there presently. Farewell.